let's start with a little bit of getting to know our people data files using Excel. So there's a lot that you can do before you even get into any kind of analytics just by clicking around in a basic file. So this file that I have here is one that is fictional data, but it was created by IBM a while back. You can still find this data file up on the Kaggle data set. I'll have links if you would like to use the same file to follow along. But the rows, the columns, the data is very similar to what you might see with an organization that's coming out of their HR system or working to do people analytics and other things like that. So inside of Excel, you can learn quite a bit just by looking around. So let's say we have this file. We can get a sense of what kind of data we have based on the labels across the columns here. So we can see that we've got everything from age, attrition, business travel, daily rates, and some of these things will be apparent what they are. Others you might need to reference a data dictionary to get a sense for what the fields mean. Now, just by looking at the file, we can start to understand some fairly basic information about our different fields. So for example, we could do a filter to turn any one of these columns into a drop-down list and see what's in them. So for example, I could select all of the data and I could go to the Data tab and press Sort and Filter and turn on filters. It's going to give me these little drop-down arrows here. And by doing that, I can get a sense for what type of data I have in here. So under the attrition column, I can see that the two options that pop up are let me slide it so you can see it over here. The two that pop up when I do that is no and yes. So I can see that the data fields in here are no for attrition didn't happen, or yes for attrition happened. I can do the same thing with business travel. I can see that there are three options here: non-travel, travel frequently, travel rarely, and so on. For example, I can see that this file has information on just three departments: human resources, research and development, and sales. So lots of information just by understanding what's in the file. And without even doing much more than this, I can look for things within the data. So let's say on this first column, age, maybe I'm curious what the average age is for employees in this particular subset. You can do a calculation and all sorts of other things, but here's a little tip for you. You can actually click on the entire column header. So I just clicked on this letter A here. And if you have the functions turned on, you can get information down at the bottom of your Excel function. You may not see these if you don't have them turned on. So the way to do that, at least on a PC, is to right-click and to turn on the settings for that bottom bar. And you can ignore all these settings here at the top. But in this section down here, you'll see there's a thing for average, for count, numerical count, minimum, maximum, and sum. If you turn these on, meaning they have a check mark next to them, that will mean that anytime you select a set of data, you will get those things calculated across the bottom. So without doing anything here, I just clicked on the letter A so that I selected the whole column. I know that the average age of employees in this file is 36.9 years. So there we go. Our average age is about 37. I can also see counts and numerical counts. So I can see that the number of cells, again, let me move this up so you can see the hover. I can see that the number of selected cells that contain data is 1,471. Next to it, I see the numerical count. What this means is how many of those cells have actual numbered data in them. And we could tell by looking at this that the first column and row was a title. It was the word age. So that did not count as numerical data, but the next columns did. This is actually really helpful as well because it can help you get a sense for if you have any blanks or how many items you have. So for example, if I wanted to see how many people were in this file and whether or not age had some blanks in there, I can look at the total count versus the numerical count. In this case, it says that there are 1471 cells filled in and 1470 of them have data. So I would expect to have 1471 rows with data if I have no blanks. And so if I just scroll down to the end, I'm using the scroll bar here, I can see that I do in fact have data that goes down to row 1471. So that does tell me that every one of these is filled in. If I had data going down past that, and let's just say it went down to 1500, and it told me that my count was only at 1470, then I might know that I had a certain number of blanks in there as well. So that can be useful sometimes to see if it's all the way filled in or not. You also would have noticed that as I clicked on that column, I had some other features turned on. So I had minimum. This is telling me that the lowest age in this file was 18 years. And it had a maximum in this particular group that happened to be at 60 years. And it also has a sum. Now that is all of the age numbers added together. In this case, it's not too helpful for us because adding all of the age together, it doesn't have a lot of practical purposes, but you could see how if this had dollar amounts or other items, you might want to get the sum of it added all together, and that would be available to you right there. So lots of good pieces that you can work on just by moving around and exploring what's in the file and seeing how it's set up. Now let's move on to analyzing the data a little bit further. So while you could do things like clicking on the column to get the average and the count and the min and the maximum, what if you wanted to look at different groups or settings? You can do things like filter and then look there. So for example, if I wanted to know the age of just individuals in the human resources function, I could filter on human resources, then select age, and I'll now see that it's about 37.8. So a slight difference in terms of the age of this group versus all of them when I wasn't selected on one group. So the filters plus those pieces of information at the bottom can be very useful.